Good evening. Welcome to PoliticIt podcast. Tonight we have Heidi Balderree. Heidi, congratulations. You came out victorious at the state convention. How'd you do that? I mean, you were the clear party choice coming out of that, right? Over 70%.
That's right.
Yeah.
70, I believe it was 0.54%.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Very good. So what do you think was the motivation of the delegates behind that? What did you do that maybe your opponents didn't do in that?
You know, I think one of the differentiation factors is just my sheer experience. And, you know, the experience has to be earned. It can't be bought or, you know, earned overnight. And for over a decade, I have been heavily involved in local politics and service opportunities and, you know, appointed positions and elected positions. And so, you know, it's really hard to do that overnight, which, you know, one of them has no experience, never even been a delegate, and the other has done minimal work, you know, is just getting started, just getting her feet wet. So I think that the
that was surprising. I mean, I was there.
Yeah.
Right. It was surprising that they had exactly a tie, and they did a coin flip to decide.
Yeah, that was. I mean, that was. I could not have had guessed that was going to happen, and so yeah, that was interesting, and I'm sure it was frustrating for the one who lost. But it was clearly in the rules, and, you know, regardless of the odds, the rules were in place a long time before that election.
And so they just, it's nice though when they follow the rules, right?
Right.
I mean, that's all we can really hope for, is that, you know, there's fairness, they follow the rules,
Yeah, and for me, you know, I'm looking at it a little bit differently, right? So there was a special election back in October. There were 13 candidates. I emerged the victor. And both of those, the two who are running now, were in that special election. And so I beat him once. And then on Saturday, I beat him a second time. And now, because we have the dual path to the ballot with the signature system, unfortunately, I have to beat them again.
Right. It's all three of you in the primary.
Correct.
Right, because they both got signatures, but you were a convention-only candidate, right?
That's right. You know, I figure if I can't get 40% of 150 people to vote for me who've spent 2 months vetting me, and actually some of them were, you know, carryovers from the first time, you know, I don't deserve to be on the ballot, frankly. I think that the system that we have is great because, you know, we've been at these meet and greets, we've been at all these meetings, and people will come again and again and call you and text you and thoroughly vet you. And if I can't convince that many people, in my mind, I just don't deserve a spot on the ballot. And you know, frankly, I don't like the idea of someone being able to buy their way onto the ballot.
Right. So what's next now? I mean, you're on for the primary, right? So
yes. Well, you know, I'm still the senator, and right. And the duties never end. And as you know, we had. You know, at midnight on May 1st, I stayed up until midnight so that I could submit new bill files.
Right.
So I'm super excited about the work that I'd like to continue, and I've already submitted 4 bill files
very good.
For next session. And so another one of them is another military bill, and it's going to establish portability for their 401k and the ability for them to vest in the case that they have to move, and for their spouses, right? And so this is a huge win. It's kind of groundbreaking, because if we do this in the state of Utah, you better believe the other states are going to be watching federally too, to see how it goes for us here. And I believe that it will be adopted as model legislation in other states.
That's cool.
After it passes.
Very good. So that bill's in the works right now.
It is. Another one is a squatters bill. And
you know what? I've had a lot of questions by people in my district about that. I've gotten quite a few emails of people saying, do we have a squatters bill? Because of what's going on nationally, right?
I know, as far as I know, I talked with our policy analyst, Brian Bean, and he mentioned that I was the only one that had submitted a bill file from the Senate. There may be others in the House.
Right.
But basically, I modeled that after the Florida legislation. We have something a little bit different. We do have the ability to evict someone out of their home if they're interfering with private property rights. But what we don't have are the penalties that would come with this bill. And so, and an affidavit and a cause of action. So those are some of the things that I want to add to make sure that private property owners are held harmless, and that we can prevent, any of these circumstances happening to folks here in the state of Utah.
And you know what? That's where we have an excellent staff in the legislature.
We do.
And very, very good advice, right? And we tend to do things the Utah way. We don't exactly copy other people, but our bills tend to be model legislation across the country.
You're right. I'm super proud of that, and that's the thing that I love is we don't have, there's no monopoly on good ideas, and one of the things that I pride myself on is helping legislation. I had two people that came to me with bill ideas, and I ran both of them, and so. I love hearing from constituents and colleagues about what would be the best ideas, because that's how we make the best legislation. I had submitted some items for study at the interim session, and one of those is about hardening our grid, and from whether it's solar flares or electromagnetic impulse or electromagnetic pulse attacks, or EMPs.
Right.
And so those both got put on the agenda, and we are very vulnerable.
Boy, Bob McAtee should be happy about
Yes,
that, right?
absolutely. Yeah, actually, I've been working with Bob, right?
That's kind of his. That's an area where he's very passionate. He has a pretty big following in a Facebook group that just deals with that very problem. People don't understand how vulnerable we are. I mean, if we had an EMP attack that wiped out the grid, we'd go back 100 years, right? There would be so many things that would be disrupted because of that.
Yeah, well, we've seen worst case scenarios. We've seen Fukushima. Now, we're in no danger of a tsunami here in dry, arid Utah, but we've seen a solar flare in Texas. We've seen, and of course, we know cyber attacks are only a matter of time. And really, I see this as a Good Samaritan bill. Like, we need to figure out how we're going to fund it, but it needs to happen. And so I'm excited that we're in agreement that this is worth consideration of studying. As a daughter of a nuclear engineer, I have this strange interest in energy, all things energy, and protecting our grid and protecting the ability to earn our livelihood. How many things are reliant upon technology?
Right.
And
yeah, can you imagine waking up one morning and your cell phone doesn't work?
Oh, no.
Right. Yeah, the whole cell phone network goes down.
Yeah.
Hey, we're going to take a break.
Okay.
And we'll be right back.
I am Senator Heidi Balderree, and I live in Saratoga Springs, just like you. So some of you may not know that I'm your senator because it's relatively new. Back in October, we had a special election because the former senator resigned right in the middle of his term. So there was a special election, and there were 13 candidates. We had 12 from Lehigh and only 1 from Saratoga Springs. So thankfully, I won back in October, so I've been the senator for the last 7 months, but the term ends this year. So right now, there's a re-election for a 4-year term, so I'm currently running for re-election as your senator. On Saturday, we had a Republican Party convention. At that convention, there are 3 candidates, and I won by 70%. with three candidates. So if any of you are registered Republicans, there is a Republican primary election on June 25th, and that is when you could vote for me or the other two candidates. Guess how many people we are in the district today, just 4 years later? Anyone? We're over 130,000. So our district is where it's happening, right? We are where it's happening. We are literally the fastest growing part of the state. And that includes, so the first and second fastest growing part of the state. So where we live is the #1 fastest growing in the state. The other part of our district, which you may not know, is we encompass part of Lehigh, most of Saratoga Springs, a huge chunk of Lehigh, and then this little teeny tiny sliver of Draper, like South Canyon, Corner Canyon, the flight park, that's in our district. And that is, South Salt Lake County is the second fastest growing part of the state. So literally you couldn't get better. Where everything's happening. And it's exciting to be in a place where things are happening. Let's say Saratoga Springs wants to build a new library or fire station or whatever, and they want to tax us for it, what we call bond. If they want to bond, this has to do with referendums or people's ability to overturn a tax on revenue bonds. Well, I wanted to give people more time to collect signatures because I've actually been a primary sponsor of a petition to try to overturn something, and I was unsuccessful. And I felt like if we had just had a little more time. So I wanted to extend the amount of time. And so that's what I was going to do. Before I even accepted the bill, I said, let me talk to my city council members and mayors in the district, Lehigh, Saratoga Springs, Eagle Mountain, Draper, see what they think. Well, some people wanted me to also change the amount of people that had to sign. It says if you want to do a revenue bond on your city or county, that you have to get 20%. Basically, 1 in 5 of the registered voters have to agree with you. And if you can't meet that, then it's a non-issue. You're done. And we landed on not 60, but 45, which is 2 more weeks. Then the lieutenant governor's office came in and said, right now, the way that it happens is if your city council or your county commissioners say we're going to pass this bond, the clock had started ticking for those original 30 days. So maybe you have to take a minute to decide, I don't know if I really want to do this. And if the longer you take, the fewer days you now have to collect signatures. Well, now we made it better. And now it is, the clock doesn't start ticking until the very first signature that you gather. And you now have an additional 2 weeks to do that. So anyway, that was, to me, even though it's not, like I said, it's not a sexy bill, it is important to me because I work with the Lieutenant Governor's office, I work with Utah Cities and Leagues and Towns, and we brought in all these partners, and what was going to be a one-word change ended up making something even better. Okay, we're going to go up here. Cool.
Thank you. That was awesome.
Oh, good. Nothing too controversial. Yeah. All right, guys, follow me. Come on in. Keep coming. Yeah, you can sit down if you want. Yeah, do it. Oh, I see some future Supreme Court judges up there. Okay, great. Okay, guys. Awesome. So as you can see, how many Supreme Court judges do we have in the state of Utah?
5.
Right. Yes, we do.
Pepsi and Peach syrup is by far the best combination.
That's the Senate President's office.
Oh.
And this is the Senate floor.
Whoa, I like this.
So,
Is that marble?
Uh-huh. If anyone wants to sit in my chair, this is my seat. Yeah, try it out.
I'll come sit in your chair.
Do. And then this is a scroll top desk, so.
Oh, my great grandmother had one of those. We had to sell it recently.
Right? And here you can see we can call each other when we're at our desk and be like, where are you at on this one? Or this one's garbage. You better not vote yes on it. In the House, they have a button at their desk that they can push to vote yes or no. When the vote is open, they can vote at any time until the vote is closed. In the Senate, we vote by alphabetical order. So by virtue of my last name, Balderree, I get to vote first every time. So it's important to be prepared and to know what the bills are that are coming up. And also what's different in the Senate than in the House is that we vote with our voice. So again, in the House, they can push a button. If they're in the lounge in this room behind them talking to people or family, they can come and step onto the floor. They have to be on the floor to vote, and they can use a hand signal up or down, yes or no. Not so in the House. We have to be on the floor also. We have to step, if we're over there, we have to step onto the floor. If we're in there, we have to come on, but we have to vote with our voice. So we can't use hand signals. We have to say yes or no, or aye or nay. I am your senator, so my name is right here. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming. I hope to see you guys again. If you see me at Walmart or Costco, come say hi.
Thank you.
Hey
You're
guys,
welcome.
real quick, we're gonna do tours, self-guided tours. So we have 5 teachers. That's gonna be about 12 of you per teacher. So find your favorite teacher.
Welcome back to PoliticIt. We've got Heidi Balderree with us. Heidi just came off a victory for her Senate seat. You are the Republican nominee. Well, you're the winner of the state convention, right? The sole winner, actually, right? Yeah. You got over 70%, which makes you the party, designated candidate, right? So you've got a primary though. Both of your opponents gathered signatures. Mm-hmm. So let me just ask you about the convention. There's been a lot of stuff in the paper just saying this is a bunch of right-wing radicals at the convention that are. What's your impression of the people that were vetting you at the convention, and the whole outcome from the convention and what went on?
Well, these are literally our friends and our neighbors. So remember, a lot of these delegates were some of the same ones that I was campaigning to back in October. And there were new ones. Maybe I didn't do the exact math.
Yeah, over 40% at the convention were people who were doing that for the first time.
Yeah, and it was great. Yeah, that was the joke that I made. I said, I asked, in the speech, I asked the room, how many of you are first-time delegates? And we saw the hands go up.
Right.
And I warned them, this is a cautionary tale. If you keep at this, you could end up being a senator.
Right.
And so that's the beauty of the caucus and convention system. It's how I got started 10 years ago. And it's a great chance to be able to mingle with your elected officials without having to have name ID, power, influence, or having the ability to pay to play. This simply could have not happened.
For you personally, right?
Personally.
You're an example of the convention system that allows people who are citizens on a mission in some respects, right? Mm-hmm. Not a lot of name ID, not a lot of money, but yet you came out as the winner.
Yes, and again, I credit that to the system that we have, where people are constantly asking you questions. I loved it when I was vetting as a delegate. I was am a state and county delegate as well. Being able to talk to people all the way up from the federal delegation down to your county elected officials, and of course, municipal is not partisan politics, but those kind of relationships and ability to call and get a response back from people in such high elected offices, I just don't think is a gift that many are aware of, how we take it for granted that these people actually respond to us. Because without the convention, they could just go to a primary, just do flyers and
and really never even have to just show up to record. Yeah.
And I think that's a really beautiful thing.
Yeah, very good. So right now, as far as your campaign's concerned, where are you focusing your attention right now? What kinds of things are you doing now you've got a different race, right? Now you've got to reach out to the masses.
Right. Yes. So, I have a robust schedule to communicate with the voters, our Republican primary voters, and whether it's texting or emailing or calling, mailers, radio, etc. I'm continuing to be out in the community meeting with people. I just met with a group out in Draper at the flight park, and was able to meet with the Paragliding and Hang Gliding Association. And I had 2 school groups. I had the Sage Hills Elementary and Westlake High School. And, those are things that I would do anyway. So really, it's just an extension of my day job. One of my day jobs, right? I also work for Western Governors University. But as a senator, these are things that I'm doing already. Transportation is one of the issues that I'm super focused on. We just had a transit fresh look study group. And we just had our second meeting there. And I'm really pushing for that. As a matter of fact, I'm really proud to say that we have helped secure with these meetings with all the major transportation partners, UDOT, WFRC, UTA, MAG, $1.235 billion in transportation funding for projects in my district or our district. And there's actually going to be a vote. And I would recommend, if you are a fan of any of these 4 projects, great. If you're not a fan, that's fine too. To reach out to the Transportation Commission, who is ultimately going to vote on those projects. But
so what's your relationship to that? You sit on that committee?
So yeah, this is actually outside of the scope of my legislative duties. Okay. I was actually the only senator invited to be part of this group. And this group is looking at transit options in the heart of our district, which is the South Salt Lake County and Northwest Utah County, and specifically made for this area. So as the only senator that was invited to this group, again, outside of my legislative duties, it's an honor to be in those meetings with the mayors and other people who are invited to sit in this group. And again, these 4 projects that they're looking at to escalate in our area are, first, the 2100 North project for the freeway. It's currently only has been partially funded, so there's a shortfall. These funds coming in would allow them to finish that project. The second one would be what we call, if you're familiar with Pioneer Crossing, it would add 1 lane in each direction, and then add a directional lane, which would be like a commuter lane going one direction in the morning and then
the opposite
in the opposite direction. The third project is an infill project that would fill in basically Mountain View corridor from 2100 North all the way to SR 73. And then the final project that it would pay for would be making Quarry Ride a freeway from Mountain View corridor to Ranches Parkway and Eagle Mountain. And, what I recommend for citizens who are watching is that you contact your Transportation Commission members who vote on these things. There's going to be a meeting on May 10th. And if you would like to make public comments, they can do so. They just need to go to udot.utah.gov/connect/about/US/commission. So, or, they can go there and search for it. But that's May 10th. So it's coming up quickly. And I know people have strong opinions.
So what got you involved in that particular thing? What was your motivation for that?
Well, I think it seemed like a natural fit. I do currently sit on the Transportation Committee, which is one of my assignments in the legislature.
And that's chaired by Senator Harper. Is that who you work with?
That's
then?
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then the Utah Valley Chamber of Commerce actually awarded me the Transportation Champion Award this year.
Oh, they did?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you kind of chalked up a few of those awards. You're kind of getting on my nerves because you keep getting Defender of Liberty first place, Taxpayers Association first place.
Grassroots, don't forget the
grassroots, yeah. And these are things that I normally win. So, no.
Well, we should just tie for him next.
Yeah.
That's what we should do, for sure.
So, have you got, what are the other things you think voters should know now about you?
Well, I care a lot about listening to the voters. One of the things that I did was I served on what's a bipartisan organization for 5 years called the Women's State Legislative Council. And in that group, I actually spent 5 years in different positions, whether it was historian, chaplain, second vice president, or the chair of, I think 10 or 12 legislative study committees. And every biennium or 2 years, they have a Republican president, Democrat president. Currently, there's a Democrat president. And we get together and we get outside of our vacuum that we like to stay in, and we talk about policy. We would meet every Wednesday during the legislative session, and then a couple times outside of the legislative session together, and talk about issues that were important to women. My time there was really important because it helps me to, it helped me relate to others, and it made me practice, because I think we get so comfortable, in these groups that we are with, that it's very important. I'm over in the Senate building where you are, and
Right.
my office, and we're surrounded by some of our Democrat colleagues who are
Right.
just fantastic, right? They're just fun people. And so I've got, Senator Kwan and Senator Bluen to my left, and it's really fun to have an association with them, because they feel just as passionately about their ideas as we do. And, if I'm not willing to run a bill for a constituent, I want to introduce them to one of my colleagues in the Senate who might, because I want their voice to be heard. And I have been really responsive and transparent. I worked really hard at that. So I actually held 3 town halls before the session started. And then I held 4 Saturday meetings during the session. And I've held now 16 public events since March 1st. So, and I've worked very hard to respond to every email, phone call, text. And to me, I do represent the district. I met with the cities beforehand. I work with the local school board members frequently. And, the same with the fire and the fire police, because they are my district. And it's very important that I'm listening to everyone and getting ideas from everyone. And so I've worked really hard to do that.
That's cool. So we're about out of time.
Okay.
Why don't you just make a pitch to the voters? Why should they vote for Heidi Balderree?
Awesome. I will. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks so much for having me today, John.
Yeah.
So my name is Heidi Balderree. I'm your current senator, and I would ask you to keep me as your senator for the very reasons that we just discussed, which is basically, I'm here for you. I represent you. I've worked hard to listen to you and advocate for you, and I will continue to do so. I'll continue to be transparent. I'll continue to be accessible and available, and I care about what everyone in our district thinks, and I'll continue to do so. So please look for your ballots in the beginning of June and vote Senator Heidi Balderree for re-election in Senate District 22. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Balderree. Nice to have you today.
Appreciate it.
And we'll see you guys next week.